DRAVEN. My history with Full Moon goes back almost 20 years. I started out at Full Moon as an editor, editing a lot of feature films and trailers over the years, culminating into a producing and directing relationship with Charlie, in which I made movies like Cribs, Stuart Gordon Presents Deathbed, Hell Asylum, Horror Vision, Real Evil. The Deadly 10 are 10 feature films that will be produced right in front of your eyes. Do you remember the video zones? Those extra features at the end of DVDs or on Blu-rays, or for those of you who are old enough, at the end of VHS tapes where the movie would play and then you would get the behind the scenes of how the movie was made. Well, just imagine the Deadly 10 like the interactive live version of the video zone. Have you ever wondered what it's like for a director to make a movie? Well, now is your chance. You can go behind the scenes. There's going to be roaming live cameras on the set of my movie, Halloween Night Meet the Ouijas. Doesn't that sound like a title that you'd want to go behind the scenes on? I mean, Halloween Night Meet the Ouijas? I mean, if it was me watching, I know I'd probably want to see what the hell that was all about. Now I know what you're thinking. A movie called Halloween Night Meet the Ouijas? That's probably not something you would normally see me direct. But let me tell you something, this is a movie that you will not want to miss. We're gonna do ghoulies-like creatures. We got a great classic Full Moon type story, and it's gonna be shot in Vegas. When I decided to do this movie, I wanted to take it back to the Full Moon classic kind of films, the movies you loved from the 80s. So that's why I think you should really tune into this movie, because that's the style in which we're gonna make it. Well, as a filmmaker who's written many books on filmmaking and the filmmaking process and done lectures, I think the idea of having cameras follow us around on set live and actually film the process is a great idea. It's something that you can't get from a book necessarily, because it's going to be live there. So, you know, if we're on the set for 10 hours at a time, that's 10 hours that you're going to have to sit through and watch the movie making process. So I think it's a great idea for people who are really curious about how these things are being made to sit back and enjoy. So when you watch the movie, you're going to have to find an Easter egg that's buried somewhere in the movie. It may be in a set piece, it may be in an actor's costume, it may be just way in the background or at the bottom of the frame. Every movie will be a little different. So make sure you tune in so you can see all of this happen right before your eyes. As a filmmaker, I think it's great to have all of you join me on the set live, where you can see the production process, what it's like to direct actors, what it's like to work with makeup effects crews, and in the post-production process, so you can see what it's like to edit or to do the movie score. I absolutely cannot wait to bring these live cameras to set so you can see what it's like for me as a director to make a movie. I mean, what better movie for you to go behind the scenes on than Halloween Night Meet the Ouijas? It's a horror comedy. It's going to be fun. I mean, imagine this. Little creatures that come out of a Ouija board. Let me say that again. A Ouija board. They come out and then they wreak havoc at a Halloween party all night long. You're going to want to stay tuned to this website, because the live stream cameras are going to show the entire movie making process. The first movie up is my movie, Halloween Night. Doesn't that sound like a movie you'd want to go behind the scenes on? This is a very different movie than you're used to seeing me make. And that's what's so cool about it. Very much in the tradition of ghoulies. I cannot wait to show you some of the creatures that we have in mind for this movie and how they're being made and puppeted through the process of making this movie. So please tune in, because after you trick or treat, it's going to be Halloween night.
My name is John LECHAGO. You might know me from the Full Moon series Killjoy 3, 4, and 5. I first worked with Charles Band probably over 10 years ago doing visual effects for a movie now called Haunted Casino. In the past, I've been involved with probably over 20 projects with Charles Band. My first impression with Charles Band was a very well composed individual. I walked into his office and said, "Charles Band," he said, "How do you know me?" "Video Zone, Charlie, Video Zone." The Deadly 10 is an insane concept of shooting 10 movies within a year by 10 of Full Moon's best directors. But we're also going to have camera people following us around, live streaming behind the scenes. I think this motion picture event is unlike any other because you have some of the best filmmakers in the business. Also, the amount of films put out by one company in 1 year the size of Full Moon features this is unprecedented. We will also, during this event, have cameras following us around during the production process, from pre-production, production, and post-production, probably catching all of the magic, all of the interaction, the repertoires, the meltdowns, the yelling, the screaming, the crying, in front and behind the camera. The Deadly 10 website is like no other website in film. We'll have chat rooms, updates, behind the scenes video, live streaming, merch. The Deadly 10 movie that I am directing is Blade, the Iron Cross. The great thing about this movie is we get to focus on that character. We get to focus on Blade and see what makes him tick. See what makes him Blade, what's so mysterious about him. In his own movie, Blade will have the biggest kills, the bloodiest kills. There'll be insane action and violence. Insanity! The story is about what makes Blade different. What is so special about that character, and what is our infatuation? This story is a direct sequel of the last movie, Axis Termination. There's still Nazis in Los Angeles hatching their nefarious plots, and Elisa Ivanov, the heroine from the last one, becomes a war journalist, and her job is to uncover their plans. Of course, she's going to be in danger, so she gets quite a bit of help from Blade. It's great to have Tanya Fox coming back and reprising her role as Elise Ivanov in Blade the Iron Cross. We get to expand her role, really stretch her performance this time. She's gonna have a lot more to do, and she's gonna get her hands dirty. So what do I think about the process of live streaming and cameras following me around all the time? Well, welcome to the 21st century, I guess. I think it's about time that people truly understood what happens on the sets of a full moon feature. It is magic. It is unlike any other filmmaking. It is not studio level filmmaking. These are people who understand multiple disciplines across the spectrum of filmmaking and are experts in multiple and know just about everything there is to know. What makes this series special and it's unprecedented is the Easter eggs you'll find. If you understand full moon and have a sharp eye, you can find these. Get ready for some cool promotions and prizes coming your way. We are shooting Blade, the Iron Cross in Los Angeles in an amazing studio sometime this summer.
Hi, I'm BRINKE Stevens, and you might know me from Slumber Party Massacre, Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bolorama, and Bad Girls from Mars.
And you might know me, Dave DECOTEAU, from Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bolorama, Dr. Alien, and Nightmare Sisters.
My first interaction with Charles Band was on Slave Girls from Beyond Infinity in the mid-'80s. And I played a survivor of a shipwreck who gets hunted by a madman on this alien planet. Good.
Oh, that old story.
Yeah, that.
My first interaction with Charles Band was in 1986 on a film called Dream Maniac. And it was basically a female Freddy Krueger movie. And it was the first of many. And boy, I miss the 80s.
I've done a number of Full Moon and Empire Pictures movies, including Slave Girls from Beyond Infinity. Also, most recently, Trophy Hits, which reunited me, Linnea Quigley, and Michelle Bauer.
Well, after Dream Maniac, I directed Creepazoids for Charlie with Linnea Quigley, Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bolorama with BRINKE. The list goes on and on. I can't remember. It seems like there's got to be at least 30 of them. Not too many months ago, Charles Band said, hey, I want to do these 10 movies, and they're all going to be basically sort of over-the-top sequels to films that I've done before. There are some original projects, but he wanted to do a sequel to Sorority Babes because he said it was very successful for him. So I agreed to it, and the script was written, and as I was reading it, I wanted to bring all the ladies back from the original, and Sorority Babes was the first one with BRINKE, Linnea, and Michelle. So I thought, well, that'd be great. And then recently, I've been talking with BRINKE because we worked together on a lot of movies, and she had been started directing. So I thought, well, maybe BRINKE should co-direct this movie with me because I really want to give it a kind of an interesting spin.
And I'm so incredibly excited about co-directing with you.
Well, I think between 200 movies and 140 movies, that's 340 movies. Let's hope we know where to put the camera.
I think we'll figure it out.
Well, I hope so. I think what makes the Deadly 10 unique is that not only will you ultimately see the finished movie, but you'll get to see us making the movies as well. So it'll actually be a sort of cameras following us around, a little bit like a reality show, seeing us work, seeing us prepare these movies, because a lot of the fans out there really love the fact that we have that we've made a lot of movies and they want to see how we do them. And when Charlie invented Video Zone, which was at the end of almost all those full moon movies back in the day, the fans really like to watch us work.
There is a bowling alley involved and some beautiful, bodacious sorority girls and a scary monster. So I, sort of revisiting a film that we shot 33 years ago. Oh my goodness. And Linnea has a substantial part reprising her role of Spider from the first movie. I'm not sure about cameras following me around like a reality show. That's never been done before, but I'm quite excited about it.
I think it's going to be totally unique, and I think it's going to have a lot. There's going to be a lot of secrets exposed, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see how we accomplish this movie in very few days. It's like you're getting the DVD extras live in real time before the movie even comes out.
One of the unique things about these movies is the Easter egg factor.
Skull and crossbones are going to be placed throughout the entire movie. You got to look at every square inch of every single set piece, because if you find them, you may be surprised. You may win some interesting prizes. And get ready for the first Deadly 10 film, Halloween Night.
Hi, I'm Lindsay SCHMITZ, and I've been working for Full Moon for a few years now. I handle a lot of the video I/O, and you might know me as my alter ego, Leon Schmooley. As Lindsay SCHMITZ, I've been doing some of the camera work on the past half dozen or so, cutting a lot of the featurettes and the behind-the-scenes stuff. That's me that put that together. When I was a kid, going to the video store, it would always be at least 1 in 3 movies that I picked up would always be Full Moon movies. So my first impression of Charlie was seeing him on, like a lot of you probably at home, seeing him in the video zones at the end of every Full Moon feature. And the first time I had met Charlie, actually, I was brought as a +1, but I was dressed as a luchador, and I came up to him and I was like, "Charlie, oh my God, I'm a big fan." And he was like, "That's cool, man." And I'm like, "Oh, I came here with Nikai." And he's like, "That's cool, man." He's like, "Do you mind taking off your mask?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, hey." And he's like, "Oh, all right." 10 features from 10 different directors, all reviving a classic Full Moon franchise, and done in an interactive and imaginative way where you guys at home are going to be able to follow along with everything and really see what actually goes into it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Along with the Deadly 10 comes the Deadly 10 website, and the really cool thing about that is not only all the interactive functions and features, but also the really cool thing is the live streaming aspect of it, because you're going to see us make mistakes. Now, if you were to watch Ridley Scott talk about Blade Runner, for instance, he's probably going to mostly talk about the things that went well. And you're going to see it as this in a historical light. And that's definitely really cool to check out. But it's also cool to see, maybe you see somebody going off on an idea that didn't quite work out, and you find out why it didn't, firsthand, but then you see what they did to kind of salvage that and overcome it. You have to know more. You have to be able to roll with things and be versatile and all that. So I hope you're going to see that in these live streams. So my favorite part of the filmmaking process is probably pre and post-production. And that's actually going to be something cool, because that's aspects where you don't often see behind the scenes footage about that. My project is Femalian Cosmic Crush. It's about a professor who goes to the far reaches of space and awakens a sexy eldritch terror. And this time, the Altarians are in a new adventure where they're battling the Thanagarian Pleasure Beast, which is a tentacle monster from the far reaches of space that was worshipped as a god thousands of years ago but has been lying dormant and is now reawakened with sexy results. And we're really introducing some sci-fi elements, some monsters, the Thanagarian pleasure beast, and we're really going to take it into a direction that the other ones maybe haven't quite gone so far. Not only is it going to be true to surrender form, where you're going to have the most beautiful women working today, it's going to really be a sexy sci-fi event, and that's how I really want to keep it. Definitely true to the surrender form, but also this ain't your daddy's surrender cinema, I'll tell you that much for sure.
This is Chris Alexander. I am the ex-editor of Fangoria magazine. I am the current editor and co-founder of Delirium magazine. I'm also the writer, director, composer, and probably caterer for movies like Queen of Blood, Blood for Irina, and Female Werewolf. You know, my first interaction with Charlie Band was, as probably a lot of us had with him, and that's from a viewer, from a fan perspective. And I remember the first Charles Band movie I saw was a bomb in Leonard Maltin's book, and that was Parasite, 1982. And all the things that he was claiming, or whoever wrote the review were claiming that were wrong with the movie, were so right for me, with blood and parasites being thrust at the viewer in 3D and how revolting it was, and I was in. So I stayed up really late and watched Robert Glaudini struggle in slow motion with this parasite popping out of his chest, and I was hooked. And from then on, I would stay up as late as I could to see anything that I could search through my Fangorias and find out if it was an Empire Pictures production. Then I knew I was in for something cool. So I grew up watching Charlie's movies. Well, Delirium is an ongoing thing. Delirium magazine is an ongoing project between Charlie and myself. But what has happened, and this is what happens in the Full Moon Empire Pictures and the Charles Band Omniverse, is that it's a family environment in many respects. And I think this goes back to Charlie's own heritage, his own upbringing with his father in Italy and his brother, and I think if you share the same passions as Charlie, if you speak the same language, you're going to end up working together for an indefinite period of time. This new project, The Deadly 10, is the wildest and weirdest and most exciting of them all. What is The Deadly 10? That's a great question. I think on the surface it is exactly what it sounds like it is. It's 10 feature films. I think it's the most incredible, brave, crazy, bold experiment in independent feature filmmaking I've ever heard of in my life. And I love all movies and I study all cinema, and I can't remember the last time, if this has ever been done before, I can't remember. The fact that you're making not only 10 features, but you're inviting your fans now virtually backstage with you, so you can see every step of the process as you go. So it's incredible, it's weird, it's exciting, and the world has never seen anything quite like The Deadly 10. I mean, as a film critic and someone who's written about movies and been on hundreds of film sets all around the world, it's always been a bit of a secret handshake for us guys who are part of the machine in a weird way to get on set and be the fly on the wall to watch all this stuff happen. But now anyone, anywhere, any place can do this from the comfort of their own living rooms, and that's really incredible. The name of my Deadly 10 project is Necropolis Legion, and it is I want to say it's a sequel, but it's not really a sequel, and I hate using relaunch, reimagining, all those buzzwords that people throw around when they're basically pulling a fast one and remaking a beloved title. But it is kind of a spiritual sequel in a way to the original Empire Pictures Necropolis. But what it has at its core is a great gimmick and a really iconic character that I think if you saw this movie at the right time, when you were young, this character and what she got up to really spoke to you. What we're doing with Necropolis Legion is taking that idea about a strong, scary female witch, and we're expanding that universe, kind of fetishizing it in a way, being a little more direct and a little more singular, amping up the sex, because we can, and amping up the weirdness, I don't want to give too much away about our movie, But if you liked The Three-Titted Witch in Necropolis, you'll love our witch in Necropolis Legion. There will be nowhere for us to hide. We are making this movie, and you are going to be watching us do it.
Hi, I'm Ted NICOLAOU. You might know me from some of the films I've directed, working with Charles Band, like TerrorVision, Subspecies, Dragon World, Leapin' Leprechauns, and many, many more. I first met Charlie Band back in 1978 when some friends of mine were producing a movie called Tourist Trap, and they asked me to edit it. And so I came to work in Charles's little factory on Santa Monica Boulevard. Charlie Band back in the days of 1978 was a very kind of mysterious character who stayed in his office quite a bit, and he was really hard to get to know at the time, but the one thing that he had was that he loved movies. And the joy of watching him watch dailies every day was really infectious. And so I ended up editing a lot of movies for him and sort of became his fix-it editor for a long time. And we gradually became friends. The Deadly 10 is a brand new concept from Charlie Band, sort of the resurrection of the Full Moon brand, I believe. And it is a series of 10 movies made by some of Full Moon's greatest directors and put together in a way that's going to encourage audience interaction and a great deal of fun beyond just the movies themselves. I think the thing that's going to stand out most of all from the Deadly 10 movies is the fact that people will be able to participate in a way that you don't usually participate in a movie. Like we'll have live streaming on the set, daily updates of what's going on. So in a way you're there while the film is being made and get to know people like the directors and some of the stars of these films in a way that you usually don't. The film that I'm going to do is one that's been kind of anticipated for a long, long time now. It's Subspecies number 5. And it's called Subspecies, Blood Rise. And it's a story that doesn't take off like the normal Subspecies do from the end of the last one, but goes all the way back to the beginning of Radu's life and tells you how he became the monster that you all love. And now, finally, in the resurrection of Charlie Band's Full Moon through Deadly 10, we're going to have the chance to make it. The most exciting thing for me about getting to finally come back to the Subspecies story is to be able to work with Anders Hove, the Danish actor who plays Radu, Denise Duff, who played Michelle in the original series and now has a part as a kind of a pre-incarnation of herself. One of the unique things about the Deadly 10 website is the fact that there will be live streaming from the set of all of the films. And for me, it's sort of like, that's going to be really interesting because you'll see kind of the joys of movie making, the challenges of movie making, and sometimes the horrors of movie making. And especially on my set, I definitely want you to see the full range of everything. And we're lucky because Denise Duff loves the camera and loves to talk to fans. So I can imagine her commandeering that camera on a daily basis. Anders sort of hates putting on the makeup and doesn't hate fans, but sort of hates having cameras in his face. But I think in this case, we will kind of force him. And me, I'm going to take you on a tour of the weirdest things that we can possibly find.
I have been working with Charlie Band for over 35 years, so fellas, beat that. I started out working on Reanimator, Troll, Ghoulies, Ghoulies 2, From Beyond, Robojocks. I think I've worked on over 50 films for Charles Band. The first time I met him was right before we flew off to Spain to work on Eliminators, which was a film that we were supposed to be shooting for 3 weeks, and I'm pretty sure we ended up being there for 3 months. It was the most amazing experience of my life. I was 17 years old. I'd never been on a movie set before, and boy, oh boy, did I get an education. I've virtually worked in every department that you can work for Empire Pictures and for Full Moon. Eventually, Charlie gave me my break directing. I directed Demonic Toys 2, Personal Demons, and I helped create the Ginger Dead Man franchise. Let me remind you, 35 years of working with Charles Band and no end in sight. I will be directing, producing, and running craft services for this guy until I drop, which we all know could be at any minute. I would walk through hot coals for this guy, and in some of the movies that I've worked on for him, I actually have had to. But one of the most interesting things about my journey between Empire Pictures and Full Moon is the time that I worked on the movie Prison with this completely unknown actor, a guy by the name of Viggo Mortensen. That's right, Charlie gave Viggo Mortensen his big break. It is an absolute pleasure to be included in the Deadly 10. You have so much creative room to stretch your creative legs. You don't answer to 30 people like in so many other companies that I've worked for. This is going to be huge. The Deadly 10 are 10 all new, brand new films created from the Full Moon staple of directors. He's got the best of the best stepping up to turn this out. We are raising the bar, people. Better stories, bigger stories, more gore, more effects, more girls, for those of you interested. Sequels, prequels, and all new franchises. And guess what? You're going on the journey with us. The Deadly 10 is an unprecedented movie-making event. This has never happened before, people. For the first time ever, viewers are going to be able to come along with us on the journey of making a movie, from the casting to the creation of the special effects to the actual shooting. This has never been done before, but I bet you if we get it right, someone else will rip us off. For fans like me, it's like getting a behind-the-scenes look right on set. For people interested in making movies, it's almost like going to film school. And the best part, it's all free. The Deadly 10 website is like nothing that you've ever seen before. We're really proud of it. There's live streaming as the cameras follow along with us as we make the movies. There's updates on how the effects for the next film are coming together. There's a chat room, and there's even an update from Charles Band every now and then that lets you know exactly where the project is and where it's headed. You know, since I'm an OG working for the company for so long, original gangster, why wouldn't I be the guy selected to direct The Grim Rapper? That's right, you heard it right, The Grim Rapper. It's sort of an homage to the old 1980s, 1990s revenge murder flicks like Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th. And who better to helm a movie like that? None other than the Mickey Rooney of horror myself. I've been killed by every killer in horror history. So I'm combining everything that I know from every film that I've ever been in and smushing it into The Grim Rapper, which is going to be the scariest, goriest, ass-kickingest film you've ever seen, and I want you to come with me. The story takes place back during the East Coast, West Coast rap wars when the East and West were at each other's throats. In the beginning of the film, a West Coast rapper is taken out by somebody on the East Coast for stealing his material. And the next thing you know, he comes back to life to take revenge on everybody who done him wrong, especially the people that stole his gig. And his weapon of choice? Only a giant, murderous boombox, or a doombox as I call it, as it blasts his enemies with sonic, loud, massive waves of sound that literally blow your fucking head off. And the best thing about my film, since it's an homage to 1980s horror, I'm not using any CG gore effects, brother. It's all practical effects and geysers of blood.
My name is Charles Band, and I'm known as sort of a guy who's made a lot of science fiction, fantasy, and mainly horror movies. I got my start, I grew up on a movie set. My father made movies first in the States, way back in the day. Then he took us all to Europe, made a movie called Face of Fire, made another movie called I Bury the Living. Then he took us to Italy and he made epics with Steve Reeves. I actually was put in front of the camera, I didn't like it. I played the son of Steve Reeves in one of the Hercules movies. And then I soon learned that being in front of the camera was kind of not what I wanted to do. I wanted to be behind the camera. And then I was lucky enough to come back to this country, and I invented a crazy business as a whole nother chapter and story, made some money, and I made my first horror movie, which was originally called The Eyes of Dr. Cheney. And the distributor at the time decided to give it a much more classy title, and he called it Mansion of the Doomed. But it was quite a cast. We had Richard Basehart and Gloria Graham, Lance Hendrickson's first movie. John Carpenter was my editor, but he didn't take credit. Andy Davis was my DP. Andy went on to make big movies like The Fugitive, and Stan Winston, the wonderful, amazing effects artist, did the effects. So we had quite a cast and crew back in 75 or something like that. And then I just kept making movies. I'm a movie junkie, and we just started making movies in the 70s. First with Empire, actually before Empire, it was called Charles Band Productions, then Empire in the 80s, and then Full Moon in the 90s up to today. I mean, I can't help but tell you about Head of the Family, which is one of the top 10 movies that I enjoyed making, I enjoy looking at many years later. Other movies like Trancers is also one of my more favorite films. But Head of the Family was so unique and so offbeat, and seems to be a film that fans talk about all the time, that it would make sense for me in this group of Deadly 10 movies, to make the sequel, which I wanted to make years ago, couldn't really afford it, called Bride of the Head of the Family. But in the case of the Deadly 10, the fact that we're live streaming with at least 2 cameras on every movie set times 10 movies, the entire process of making 10 independent feature films, that's very cool, and that's never been done before. Even back in the early 90s when I started doing these video zones, and we were looking at clips, little short clips of how the movies were made, and interviews with effects guys and actors, and little previews of future movies. Even that was innovative back in the early 90s, and few people got to see that. But all that was wrapped in a 20-minute cut-down little sort of video program. This is where the cameras are just going to be on full-time, capturing everything that goes on a movie set and what goes on behind the scenes. So yeah, I'm sure at times it'll be boring. Not everything in a 10, 11, 12-hour day movie set production is, oh my God, riveting. But then it gets very interesting, and we have some tricks we can't announce right now that will, I think, bring people more into the movie process. So by the end, let's say you follow Puppet Master because that's your favorite, or one of the new ones like The Hourglass or The Grim Rapper. You can see all those on our homepage. If you follow it, whichever movie you're most interested in, by the time you've seen most of that material, and if you miss a day, we're going to do recaps. So let's say it's an 8-day shoot, and you've watched 3 days, you can't make it for the 4th day, or you got tired, or you fell asleep. Well, we'll have a recap for day 4, which will be in the video archive section on every movie page. That way, by the end of all this, you should have a pretty good idea what the movie's like, and it's going to be, I'm sure, really interesting to finally see the movie edited together, scenes maybe omitted, music, effects. For people who are not familiar with the process, it's sort of amazing. It's even amazing to me, and I've done this my whole life. So I think the process of observing these films and watching the final product should be pretty cool.
Hi, my name's Ryan Brookhart. How would you know me? Well, I'm the guy who does most of the key art for Full Moon. I've been doing it for a little over 21 years. I'm still doing it, so that's how you might know me. You might also know me from a couple magazines I ran back in the 90s. One was called Go Figure magazine, which was a toy entertainment magazine, and the other was called Provocateur magazine, which was an art magazine. Those are also ways you could know me. And then lastly, I make movies. I just finished directing my second feature called 2 Ways to Go West, and my first feature is currently out everywhere called Trace. My first interaction with Charlie was back when I did Go Figure magazine. I was doing a feature about the Full Moon action figures, the Puppet Master toys, and we decided to do a big budget movie in photos. So we used Photoshop and a lot of digital effects. And the feature was so good that Charlie called me and said, who did this artwork? And I said, well, I did it, and my master Photoshop artist named Brad Parker, who taught me Photoshop. So he said, hey, look, if you ever want to, if the magazine ends, or if you want to stop doing that, you should come over and work with me. So when the magazine did finally end, I went over and he hired me on the spot. How many projects have I done with Charlie? Well, in terms of key art, hundreds at this point. The Deadly 10, 10 original motion pictures. Some of them are based upon original IPs, intellectual properties of Full Moon, and some of them are sequels essentially to things like Puppet Master and Head of the Family and Subspecies. We're basically exposing all the nuts and bolts of making a Full Moon picture. Low budget filmmaking is independent filmmaking. And so you really get to see all the really cool, inventive
exciting, frustrating parts of making a film. The Deadly 10 website is the portal from which you'll get to see all of the Deadly 10 projects, all the Deadly 10 films, the merchandise you'll be able to buy, the behind the scenes that's going to be archived, so if you miss a day, you can go back and see that for the next day. So it's really the all-encompassing universe of the Deadly 10 project. The Hourglass is an interesting story because it's not a traditional horror film in the Full Moon sense. It's sort of, you can look this up if you don't know what it is. It's sort of like Edgar Allan Poe's The Monkey's Paw, and I won't explain that. But there's a sort of a Faustian element to it where you make a deal with, in this case, a genie or a djinn, and the deal you make sounds good on the surface, but it keeps creating more and more problems. And I don't really think I've ever done anything quite like this before. This is sort of a pure thriller with some horrific elements to it. I think live streaming the entire process of making a film is a natural extension of the social media experience, where we're really exposing the process. And I think the more engaged the fans are with this process, the more they will understand it. But I think the idea that we're sort of embracing the film community, the horror film community, the fans, is something that's sort of going to be the first of many. I hope you enjoy my movie. I hope you enjoy all the films on the Deadly 10, and please tell your friends.